Hi, welcome to Rock and Metal Invasion. My name is Steve. On today's episode, I'm going to be doing 15 great hard rock / metal ballads. Now, I guess that sounds like a bit of an oxymoron, doesn't it? You know, hard rock and metal ballads kind of going together. But I think basically what I'm talking about are hard rock or heavy metal bands who have done a song where they've slowed the pace down, softer. Maybe it's even a bit of a love song, less aggressive. It might have quite a blistering sort of guitar solo, and it might have a bit of a breakdown where it gets a bit heavy, but it's essentially a slower, softer song. Some people might call that a power ballad. I know that that term gets used sometimes. This is the band's power ballad. I think sometimes that's the term power ballad is a little bit difficult to define. I've actually got a compilation here, which is called More Power Ballads, and one of the tracks it's got is Mr. Big, To Be With You. And I would not call that a power ballad. It's a cool song, it's been played to death on the radio and everything like that, I know, but, it's a nice enough song, but there's nothing powerful about it. It's a ballad, really, but I suppose I would consider that a ballad by a hard rock or metal band. They're Mr. Big I'd probably classify as a hard rock band, and they're doing a ballad. I mean, if you had heard To Be With You, and I'm sure there are some people who found themselves in this situation, they heard To Be With You on the radio and thought, oh, that's a great song, I'm going to go off and get their album. And of course, you go and get Mr. Big's album, and while it's not super heavy, there's certainly not a whole lot of songs that sound like To Be With You on the album. They're a hard rock band. So that probably would have surprised a few people as well. So, the idea of metal bands or hard rock bands putting out a sort of a slower song or having at least one ballad on their album, this was fairly common in the 80s. So I'm going to really focus a lot on the 80s, early 90s. Those mainly hard rock, but some bands I think you would probably classify more as metal bands as well. But a lot of them would probably be, you'd probably say, are hard rock bands or those hair metal bands. Motley Crue were like one of the first to have success with having a ballad on one of their albums. So they had on Theatre of Pain, they had the song Home Sweet Home. It was a big hit. It was released as a single. It was a hit. And then after that, you saw virtually, every single hair metal band would have at least one ballad on their album. Sometimes two. If they had more than three or more, that might be a little bit too much. I certainly wouldn't have been too happy, but it did happen sometimes, because the reason being that those were often the songs that were successful and would give them more mainstream success potentially, and could potentially be a hit single for them. So usually what would happen, they'd release their sort of more rocking, heavier song as the first single, but still commercial, but more of a reflection of the band's sound as the first single, and then they'd follow it up with their ballad. Sometimes that would be the second single, sometimes the third single. So let's get into my ranking. So I'm going to do this in no particular order because I find it quite challenging to rank songs. It's hard enough sometimes when I've done my album rankings, but I find ranking songs, comparing one song to another, especially if it's songs I like, can be a bit of a challenge. So I've just gone with 15 in no particular order great ballads by hard rock or heavy metal bands. And I'll be honest with you, I wasn't never a big fan of ballads on albums. Usually I'd be playing the album and going, the first thing I would think when I heard a good heavy riff come in, great, it's not a ballad, it's when I'm hearing the album for the first time. So I didn't want a lot of ballads on the album. One or two was fine. I didn't want a lot, but usually wasn't a big fan. But there were some that came along that I did like, and so I'm going to show you 15 of them. This band didn't do a lot of ballads, but they're one of my favourites. Dio, of course, Ronnie James Dio, and this is the album Dream Evil, and there was a song on here called All the Fools Sailed Away, which is, I think, a ballad, quite a heavy ballad, I suppose, compared to at least some of the other ballads I'm going to be showing on this video. Dio, more of a I guess it's a good example of what I would classify Dio as more of a metal band doing a slower, softer song. Going now to some sort of LA rock, hard rock. This is LA Guns, and the track off this album that I like that is I would classify as a ballad is One Way Ticket. Very nice guitar intro to start that off. Next one, so that was number 14. Number 13, I've got Savatage. Now, these guys would be more classified as a heavy metal band, I think. But they had a great song on this album called When the Crowds Are Gone. And this is actually the re-release on vinyl, which came with 10-inch single, which is pretty cool. Yeah, really nice package. Lots of great info in here about the band and the album, the making of the album. Yeah, but When the Crowds Are Gone, I kind of think of that song as would be a good soundtrack to the death of hair metal. That's what I think of when I hear that song. The Crowds Are Gone. But it's a great song. So that was number 13. I've written it down here, so because usually when I do these things, I totally lose track. Let's see if I can keep track of it today. So number 12, like I said, in no particular order, I've gone with Wasp. I just did an album ranking for Wasp recently, and I enjoyed just going through their albums. They're so good. And I thought, when I was thinking about doing this 15 Great Ballads, one of the first songs anyway that came to my mind was Sleeping in the Fire. Great song. It still sounds, actually, it's not, it's one of those ballads, but it's not sappy at all. It sounds pretty, it still actually sounds kind of heavy. I just kind of mean and nasty, even though it's actually a slow song. So, yeah, I love that song. All right, definitely nothing mean and nasty about this one. This is very glam metal, hair metal. This is Vinnie Vincent, Invasion, and the song I like on this is That Time of Year. What I like about it is it has it's a ballad, but it does have quite a nice riff going through it. So that's what I actually like about that song. But it's definitely a ballad, even though it does have sort of a bit of a hard rock riff going through it. Next one, so that was number 11. Number 10, more obscure hair metal band. This is Hurricane Alice, and this is a great album actually. Really highly recommend it if you sort of like this kind of sound. It didn't get a lot of attention when this came out, but it's a very solid album. It's quite heavy, so rock's hard, but it's got a couple of great ballads on it as well. The one I've gone for is Too Late, but I also like Dream Girl. It's also a good song too. Right, so that was number 10. Number 9, another sort of slightly obscure hair metal band. This is Heaven's Edge, and the track I went for is Hold On To Tonight. My favourite, actually, it's one of the few times where the best song on the album is the ballad for me. So this is my favourite song off the album. Not a massive fan of this album, but I do like Hold On To Tonight. Like I said, my favourite song off the album. So that was number 9. Number 8, very not obscure at all, very well-known band. Bon Jovi, Wanted Dead or Alive. I know it's been played a fair bit on the radio. Obviously, it was a big hit. But I'm not going to let that cloud my judgment. So, I'm thinking when it came out how much I liked it. I still like it now. And so that's going to make my top 15 list. This is quite cool. This is a 12-inch single. It's also got an acoustic version of it and a live version of that song as well on it. Alright, so that was counting down from 15. That was number 8. Now I'm going to number 7, Enough's Enough. This is their debut album. And interestingly enough, this album finishes with 2 ballads, which would normally really annoy me. I'd be thinking after the the second to last song was a ballad, I'd then be expecting them to at least finish with a rocker, but they then have another ballad. But the thing is, both those ballads are really good, so I'm not complaining. In fact, this is a solid album from start to finish. So I Can Never Be Without You is the second to last song on the album, and it is a ballad, and I like it. But the one I've chosen is my favourite of this album is Finger on the Trigger. Yeah, so Finger on the Trigger, great song. But also I Can Never Be Without You I recommend as well. It's a good song. Alright, so number 6, going back to a more well-known band. I've had a few well-known bands, a few obscure ones. This one, quite well-known. This would be one of their more successful albums, if not their most successful album. This is The Cult from Sonic Temple and Eddie Chow Baby, which was a single and I think charted pretty well for them. Great song. Cult are such a great band. Number 5, another well-known band. This was also actually a bit of a hit for them. This is Kiss and the song Forever. So I do like this song. And it was written by Michael Bolton and Paul Stanley. And I think it went to number 1 in some countries. But yeah, it was a big hit. This is maybe not one of their best albums, but it's got some great tracks on it. And for me, Forever is one of them. All right, number 4. Yes, number 4. I'm going to go with, from Joan Jett's album Up Your Alley, Little Liar. Co-written with Desmond Child. Great song. Joan Jett's got some good songs. I find her a little bit, for me anyway, a bit hit and miss sometimes. Really love some of her songs, and some of her other songs not so much, but Little Liar, great song. Now this one here, these guys are pretty heavy. They'd probably be more of a, you'd probably rank them more as a heavy metal band than a hard rock band, but they've got a really great ballad on their debut album. Behind the Eight Balls is the name of the album. Thunderhead is the band, and the song I've gone for is Life in the City. Yeah, great song. Number 2. So we're nearly there, nearly done all 15. So my second one I've gone for is another well-known band, Skid Row, and another one that was a single and was successful. It's not I Remember You, which, yes, was a bit of a hit ballad for them, but I'm going to consider 18 in Life a ballad. I like that song. That's a good song. I'm not into I Remember You, but 18 in Life, yeah, that's a good song. Sounds very Bon Jovi-ish to me, especially lyrically. I know that Bon Jovi had something to do with this album. I'm not sure, like some of the writing credits, uncredited writing perhaps, and I have a feeling Bon Jovi may have had something to do with that song. But either way, it's a great song, 18 Life. And then finishing off with a more obscure band, War Babies, and a song I really recommend, Cry Yourself to Sleep. Really good ballad. The vocalist Brad Sinsel, I think is his name. He was also in a band called Brad, what band were you in before War Babies? What was it? I can't remember. Suicide Squad, I think, it was one of the bands. And TKO, yes, TKO. So TKO, and then he did a band called Suicide Squad, something like that. They only put out an EP. But yeah, TKO, he was the vocalist of, before this band. This is a one and done band. They only did this one album. But yeah, Cry Yourself to Sleep. Great song. Kind of surprised it wasn't a hit. I think it might have been released as a single. But also, I think it's 1992 when that comes out. So it's kind of all over. Like I said, they're probably starting to play When the Crowds Are Gone by Sabotage at that point. And those hair metal bands are starting to pack up, and they're not packing up, but maybe the crowds are starting to disappear, and they're starting to realise that the sound's not quite such a happening thing. But so anyway, it actually interestingly too, when those when the hair metal bands did start to fade away, so did the big ballads, the hit ballads. So that wasn't really much of a thing after that. But anyway, that's 15 hard rock and metal ballads that I think are worth checking out. All right, catch you later. Bye.